Hi, my name is Barry Sterling Mitchell. I produce the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings, or as I prefer to call it, the Sterling Pro Football Net Point Power Rankings and the Pro Football Bias Plus reports. And this is Ben and Barry on football.
Hello out there. This is your co-host. I'm Ben Dickerson. We're coming up on week 6 of the 2021 NFL football season. Very excited about the games that took place last weekend, week 5, and even more excited to talk about week 6.
Oh man, let me tell you something. Last week, when we show the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings, you will see something that I don't think I've ever seen in the rankings.
Really? What's that?
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen.
I have to wait?
You gotta wait. Yeah, that's
okay. That's called a tease.
And the Bias Plus reports, you know, I do the intriguing game of the week on my Sterling Net Point Power Rankings Facebook page. Can you believe I already have the game picked out?
Well, it must be a pretty intriguing game then if you already picked it out. It
usually takes you half the week to do. Game. Absolutely. So yeah, we got a lot of stuff set up for us. We're going to have some fun. We're going to rock and roll through this thing, and then naturally at the end, we're going to go to the Ben and Barry Facebook page where there's all types of current events. Maybe that's what we can just call that part, current events. Ben and Barry on football, current events, because it's bigger than just what's happening on the field. In many cases, football is life is our motto here. So, all right. First up, we're going to have Ben do Ben's NFL review of last week. I know I messed that up.
It's okay. It's our review of week 5 of the 2021 NFL season, which just happened last weekend. And as soon as
Can I mention one thing real quick?
Sure.
Just to structure this thing. And again,
absolutely,
we have our own perspectives on football. And we call that first part of the regular season the second preseason, because for most of the starters, they never played in the preseason. So this is their first time playing together. And with the new 17-game schedule, you know, I said, well, I'm going to look at the first 5 games, right, as that part of the second preseason.
Okay.
But I just realized something this week. There's 17 games, but there's 18 weeks.
That is correct.
So I've changed it, counting backwards and going in 4s.
Oh, geez, here we go.
Okay. I'm going to go back, and now the second preseason is only going to be 2 games. Those first 2 games. I'm not going to include them.
Hey, that throws off your whole hypothesis.
No, not really. Again,
went from 5 games to 2 games.
You still got 3 preseason games, so there's 5 preseason type games there. You know, but that gives us it gives us perfect quarters on the back end.
It's okay
at the rankings and things of that nature.
It's okay. I'll go with it. You came up with it. I somewhat agreed. Originally, you said 5 games. I said 4. So if we're going to go 2, I'm with you 100%.
Bam, 2.
That's a good compromise.
All right.
So here we go. Let's go back over and take a look at week 5. And I know you guys watch TV out there. You've probably heard some of this information. I am going to be respouting some information, but I will be also putting in some opinion and conjecture, which you don't get with our power rankings, but you will get it with me. So here we go. Thursday night. Again, people have been disparaging Thursday night football. Why? I have no clue. Thursday night football game was pretty good. The Los Angeles Rams had to go up to Seattle and play the Seahawks. They came away with the victory, 26-17. Matt Stafford was plagued by some sort of a finger issue. I just happened to notice every time he went to the sideline, the training staff seemed to be messing around with his throwing hand. So something definitely was amiss. He uncharacteristically was inaccurate in the first half. He sailed several passes over people's heads and even threw a pick. He was seen getting some kind of treatment during the first half. They eventually wrap the finger up with tape. And then in the second half, boom, Matt Stafford's back, looks completely different. Puts up 234 yards through the air. He had 365 total, but he put up 234 in the second half. He tossed a touchdown to tight end Tyler Higbee. The running game for the Rams, as usual, was pretty good. It made up for Stafford not being sharp in the first half. Darrell Henderson rushed 17 times for 82 yards and a score. Sony Michel contributed 37 yards and a score on just 11 touches. Good job by the Rams offense. Disaster struck for the Seahawks fans and me, because I really like Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson also suffered a finger injury, but tape didn't get it done for him. They gave him some treatment. They taped it up. He was holding on to a ball. He was attempting to grip the ball through the entire game, but he never got back in. As of this date, he has already had surgery. He actually ended up having a fracture, a dislocation, and a torn tendon in the middle finger of his throwing hand, and he will probably be out for 4 to 6 weeks. Tough break for Russell Wilson. Moving on, the New York Jets and the Atlanta Falcons went over and played in lovely old England. The Atlanta Falcons were considered the home team, so they got themselves a nice home win. They won the game 27-20. Now, we already know that the Jets defense isn't very good. In this game, their pass rush was almost non-existent, which allowed Matt Ryan to go 33 of 45 for 342 and 2 touchdowns. Rookie tight end Kyle Pitts from Philadelphia caught his long-awaited first touchdown pass, and former kick returner / wide receiver / now running back Cordarrelle Patterson continued to be the Falcons' best player with 21 total touches, 14 on the ground for 54 yards, 7 catches for 60. Now, I haven't mentioned his name over the course of the season so far, and I should have made him a fantasy highlight weeks ago, but seems from the leagues that I've been in that a lot of people caught on to Cordarrelle Patterson and what he can do out of the backfield a little bit sooner than I did, actually. So if you got him on your team, that's a nice little gem. So hang on to him. Also in that game, Jets quarterback Zach Wilson obviously showed that he has talent. He definitely showed it last week in week 4, again, not last week, but in week 4 against the Titans. But the rest of their team is just flat out bad. So I don't have a whole lot to say about the New York Jets. Sorry, Coach Saleh. The Green Bay Packers played a way better game than I expected against the Cincinnati Bengals. They had to go to Cincinnati to play it, but they had to, and they also had to go to overtime, but they pulled out the win 25-22.
A better game than you expected?
The game itself was a better game. I didn't mean to say Green Bay played better.
Oh, but you think the Packers is just going in and put the whooping on them and hit them?
Well, I didn't think they were going to put the whooping on them, but I thought they would control the game pretty handily and win going away. That was my first thought.
Wow.
But they didn't. This was a very competitive game. Went to overtime. And then we had all kinds of mayhem in the kicking game, which I will get to. Joe Burrow and the Bengals put up a really great fight in this one. He went 26 of 38, not bad, 281 yards. He threw 2 touchdowns, but he did throw 2 interceptions. He spread the ball around really nicely to Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins. Those are his 3 main targets in the passing game, all of whom contributed very well, but only Chase was able to find the end zone. The ground game wasn't great, but Joe Mixon did run for a touchdown, and backup running back Samaje Perine, who we don't talk about a whole lot, is starting to make more of a contribution. He caught a touchdown pass as well. Aaron Rodgers threw for 344 and 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Not a bad line for Rodgers, kind of a typical line for Rodgers. However, 11 of his 27 completions, we just had another quarterback in week 4 do the same thing. He threw 11 of his 27 completions to one guy, and also 1 of his touchdowns to one guy, and that was superstar wide receiver Davante Adams. 11 of Rodgers' 27 completions were completed to Davante Adams. He saw 16 targets altogether, which is a tremendous number for one receiver. He gashed the Bengals defense for 206 yards of receptions. Running back Aaron Jones was dependable as usual. He churned out 103 yards on 14 carries, and his backup, A.J. Dillon, added another 30 yards on the ground and 49 yards through the air as well as, and he caught a touchdown pass. This is a little bit of a surprise. I really like A.J. Dillon. I think he's a great backup guy. They could be a 1-2 punch. Lately, they've been more of a one punch, mostly with Aaron Jones and then A.J. filling in at the end. But A.J.'s been working on his pass receiving game, obviously. So they're starting to get him in the games even more often. Even in a tight game like this, it's surprising that he got as many touches as he did. This is a good thing for the Packers going forward, as far as I'm concerned. I think it's a really good idea. I like to call A.J. Dillon Jerome Bettis Jr. That's who he reminds me of.
Yeah,
however,
he's a load, man, and I'm just so
yes,
surprised.
he is.
I'm looking at the stats also, and I'm seeing 4 receptions for Aaron Jones, 4 receptions for Dillon. Aaron Jones had a total of 6 yards. Dillon had 49 with the 20-yard long. Wow.
Yep.
That just sounds backwards.
a little. But Jones does so well just running the ball that they sometimes don't even find a situation where they need to get him out in space. Their offensive line is run blocking extremely well right now. So when they get AJ in the game, they know they can use him both ways. So they use him kind of as the mix it up, change of pace type guy.
Okay.
The big story in this game, though, was the missed field goals by both kickers. Now, Cincinnati, it was a crazy weekend for field goal kickers anyway, but this game was especially crazy. Evan McPherson is the Bengals kicker. He doinked one off the upright in regulation, and he had one sail just a little bit outside in overtime. This missed so closely that he thought he had made it, actually jumped in the arms of his holder and start celebrating. And then they all turned around and went, "What? I missed?" So that one was
hit the flag.
It actually smacked the flag that blows and shows you the wind.
The flag was blowing on the outside of the
right, and the ball went right to it, which tells me that there was a little gust. It was already headed that way, but there was a little gust that just kind of pushed it off. So, hey, that's the life of a field goal kicker, I'll tell you. But that wasn't all. Mason Crosby missed 2 in regulation, one that might have been a game winner, one that probably and almost definitely would have been the game winner. The first one was with only 2 minutes left in the game, maybe a little bit more. The other one was in the final 3 seconds of regulation. He missed them both. Then he missed another one in overtime before nailing the game winner, which wasn't a gimme. It was a 49-yarder. I don't know what the heck was going on there. I thought this game was going to end in a tie with them, both of them just missing back and forth. But he did nail 49-yarder. Packers did get the win.
Amazing.
Okay. In the Packers' same division, the Detroit Lions went up to Minnesota to play the Vikings. Close game here. It's just a problem with Detroit not having the weapons. They lost the game to the Minnesota Vikings 19-17. It was a somewhat quiet day for Kirk Cousins, by the way. This guy's thrown multiple touchdowns over the last 3 games of the season. But he basically game managed the Vikings offense to the win in this one with a 25-34 effort for 275 yards. He did throw 1 touchdown. He did also throw 1 interception. Justin Jefferson was his main target. He caught 7 balls for 124 yards. And with starting running back Dalvin Cook still down, Alexander Madison came in and was a big contributor on the ground. He had 25 carries for 113 yards, an additional 40 carries. That's also big for 7 receptions, and he scored a receiving touchdown. So nice production out of the main guys there without having to lean too hard on Kirk Cousins, having to throw a whole bunch of passes. Now, at this point, for the Lions, their offense has no choice but to lean on its running game. Their best skill position players are basically DeAndre Swift, who gained 104 yards and a touchdown on 17 carries, and Jamal Williams, the running back that came over from the Packers last year. He totaled 65 yards on 15 touches. Meanwhile, Jared Goff has struggled with little to no top talent at wide receiver. Their passing game is pretty much null and void. They just don't have the receivers that can really get open on a consistent basis, which really looks bad on Jared Goff, but what are you going to do? I do believe that the Lions will still win some games. I know you're rooting for them. I know they're fighting tooth and nail on defense. Obviously, they were able to somewhat hold the Vikings down, having them only score 19 points. But until they get some receivers that can actually get open, or get separation, we'll never know if Jared Goff is going to be any good in this league. So that's the way I look at
Jared Goff, I was going to text you and I was going to say, is there any way for us to check Jared Goff's DNA to see if he's related to Mitchell Trubisky at all?
No, don't do that to him. That's unfair. That's unfair. I wouldn't say that.
He has his moments. Now wait.
Absolutely.
I think he's a good quarterback, okay? But obviously, I thought Mitch Trubisky was a good quarterback, but they had their moments. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. He has his moments. But
everybody has their moments.
In the points line here is that of the 17 points that the Lions scored, 9 of them were kicks. They were 3 for 3. And the Vikings were, out of their 19 points, 13 were for kicks. So in both cases, it was a kicking game, and the Vikings were better. Or they got more kicks in, I guess.
Well, the Vikings got more kicks in. That is true. But the major problem for Goff and for their offense is they don't have viable talent at the wide receiver position. Mitchell Trubisky had Allen Robinson, who's the stud. And he had him since he got there, and he had him when he was gone. Jared Goff has nothing, but when he did have something, he took the Rams to a Super Bowl. So I'm not going to disrespect him by calling him Mitchell Trubisky. Everybody has their Trubisky moments, some more than others, okay? So I'm not taking away the whole Trubiskying it up thing, because I love that. That was one of the greatest things you ever came up with. But I can't do that to Jared Goff yet.
All right. Yeah, I just felt like the Lions were they just never gave. When they played my Niners, they never gave up. They got into a shootout with us. I mean, we scored a lot of points, but they never gave up. And I see that. But like you said, they don't seem to have the talent or maybe the coaching. I'm still not sure about their coach, if he's really ready for prime time. So
yeah. Plus, I believe he's a defensive guy. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's a defensive guy. So he might want to check on what's going on over there in the offensive coordinator's mind. But I'm sure he's doing the best he can. Obviously, they're able to stay in games simply because he's scheming up the best part of his offense, which is the run game, and they're having success. But that's not always going to be enough.
They did have a lot of injuries in their secondary also,
that doesn't help, but they are a tough team. Remember in the preseason when the head coach gave that crazy news conference and was talking about biting people's kneecaps off and all that stuff? He's really that kind of guy. Okay. So when you talk about toughness and you talk about the Lions, even if they have injuries, they're going to be tough. That's real, So I'd like to see this guy get a couple of years under his belt, get a couple of drafts, and see what he can do with the Detroit Lions. They could be an up-and-comer. Who knows? They're just missing some pieces. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next up,
the Denver Broncos roll into Pittsburgh, PA, and get beat by the Pittsburgh Steelers. The score was 27-19. I talked pretty bad about Ben Roethlisberger last week. I'm going to try to make up for that. But right now, what I got to say right off the bat is the Denver defense was really good through the first 3 weeks of the season. They totaled 8 sacks and 4 interceptions through the first 3 weeks of the season. But in week 4, They failed to contain Lamar Jackson. And against the Steelers, they were unable to get to Ben Roethlisberger. They only sacked him once. Now, last week, I talked about Ben looking like he was put together like an erector set, that somebody didn't really give you a screwdriver to finish off the job, and everything was all like this. You know what I'm saying? They kept him clean.
Erector set?
Yeah, remember the erector set back in the day?
I had an erector set, but you're
So
talking
did I.
way back in the day.
Yeah.
These kids today know what an erector set is.
They probably don't, but regardless of that, you know what happens if you take a screw and a nut and you tighten them with your fingers and then you can't find your screwdriver? It's not going to be too sturdy. That's Ben Roethlisberger right now.
Okay.
This time, his line kept him clean and he went to work. He ain't done yet. That's all I'm saying. The guy ain't done yet. He completed 15 to 20 passes, very efficient, 253 yards. He threw 2 touchdown passes, no interceptions. He wasn't hardly harassed at all. This is a big turnaround in the negative for the Denver defense. He only went to wide receiver Deontay Johnson twice, but Deontay Johnson caught both of those balls, and one was a beautiful 50-yard bomb down the sideline that went for a touchdown. Chase Claypool, coming off of a hamstring injury, caught 5 balls for 130 yards and a touchdown. The biggest key to the Steelers' offense, though, was rookie running back Najee Harris, who really was starting to break loose. He fought through cramping issues in the second half. Usually that's a dehydration thing. Guys got to be very careful about their fluids. But in the second half, he was able to go in and out a couple of times and fought through it. And he put together 142 yards on the ground, and not just 142 on the ground. He put together a total of 142 yards and a touchdown on 25 total touches. So he did catch a couple passes in there. It was really good to see Teddy Bridgewater back. I was hoping that he would get back after 1 week, having suffered a concussion. He made a valiant effort to keep the Broncos in the game. He played pretty well. Threw for 288 yards and 2 touchdowns, but his effort fell short when he was intercepted in the back corner of the end zone late in the game. That pretty much stopped the comeback for them. Pittsburgh wins. All right, Miami Dolphins. Oh boy, I'll tell you, they're a big shock for me. I thought Miami was going to be a lot better this year than they are. They lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is nothing to be super embarrassed about, but the score was 45-17. I mean, Miami's a bus ride away from Tampa Bay. They didn't have to take a long trip or nothing. This was just a beat down. I'm going to make this one quick. Tom Terrific was unstoppable against the struggling Dolphins secondary, throwing for 411 yards and 5 touchdowns. You know, Tom didn't run none in. That's all through the air. 411 yards, 5 touchdowns. Mike Evans caught 6 passes for 113, 2 touchdowns. Antonio Brown grabbed 7 passes for 124, 2 touchdowns. Chris Godwin consistently moved the sticks and kept drives alive, caught 7 balls on 11 targets for 70 yards. The only real bright spot for Miami, and this is fantasy here, the only real bright spot for Miami was a big-time bounce back from running back Myles Gaskin. He only carried the ball 5 times for 25 yards, but he led all Dolphin receivers in this game, catching 10 passes out of 10 targets for 74 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's a big-time bounce back from a guy who played pretty bad just the week before. So if you drop Myles Gaskin in fantasy real quick, see if you can grab him back up, because he went to work against the Bucs. Next game up, the New Orleans Saints traveled to the nation's capital to play the Washington football team and handled them 33-22. Although the football team put up 22 points on the board, they were terribly inefficient on both sides of the ball, but especially defensively. Every week, it seems that I keep getting worse and worse and worse in reference to talking about the Washington football team's defense. I'm not going to use the V word anymore. I promise you, and believe me, it barely comes into my head when I talk about them now. Alvin Kamara, however, had what used to be a typical Alvin Kamara day. He ran 16 times for 71 yards and a touchdown. He caught 5 passes for 51 yards and another score. And Jameis Winston thrived through the air, totaling 279 and 4 touchdowns. Not a whole lot to talk about on that one. Obviously outplayed, outcoached, outschemed. I don't know what's going to become of Washington, nor do I know if when Ryan Fitzpatrick returns, he can really help them, because Heineke isn't horrible. They just can't stop anybody. So they're not the only ones out there.
And they had Heineke throw this ball 41 times.
That's far too much for him. That's far too much. I know. I know. I don't even talk about that one anymore. So the Philadelphia Eagles, whoo, man.
I'll say this much real quick, though. I will say yes. They had over 100 yards. They had 131 yards rushing, so not like they didn't run the ball.
No. But, when the other team is rolling up and down the field, you feel compelled to do something to try to stay in striking distance. But no matter what you do on offense to try to stay in striking distance, if your defense just continues to give up yardage and touchdowns, you end up just throwing the ball because it's futile to try to continue to run. And that's where they usually end up, happening throughout the second half of games. Philadelphia Eagles. Now, there was a lot of angst, about the Eagles going into this game. I heard a lot of people be extremely confident they were going down to Carolina. And Carolina was coming off of a loss to Dallas, I believe. Is that correct? Yes, I believe it is. So looked like some vulnerability there. Eagles fans were pretty happy. I myself, I don't know. I felt good about the Carolina defense. But then I started thinking, maybe did I drink the Kool-Aid a little bit too soon? Turns out I didn't. They had a bad game, yes. But in this game, they actually played really, really well. They recorded 2 sacks against the Eagles. They had 1 interception. They had a fumble recovery. They even got a safety. They had a 4th down stop, and they had 4 3-and-outs. That's big. The culprit in this loss was a clunker by Sam Darnold. Got through 3 interceptions. So even though Jalen Hurts struggled with the long ball again, and the Eagles' play calling on offense is looking real, real shaky right now. Jalen Hurts did score 2 touchdowns on the ground, which was very Sam Darnold-like.
Yeah, and Sam Darnold had been doing that, right? He was leading the league, right, if I remember correctly.
Right. So then, Jalen Hurts did it to them. The Eagles fought hard for this game. This was a really hard-fought game. Sat and watched it with a bunch of Eagle fans in the bar. It's a lot of back and forth, but they fought hard for this. And thanks to Darnold's turnovers, they cashed in the extra possessions and they pulled out the victory. So kudos to Philadelphia Eagles for that.
Yeah, kind of really messed up my Bias Plus report, because Panthers were favored with a Bias Plus score of 42.
Yeah. I tell you, the defense is solid. They just ran into a buzzsaw with Dallas. That's all. That showed a little bit of vulnerability, but for the most part, their defense is solid. So maybe Darnold gets a bounce back this week. We'll see.
And of course, they did not have their star running back.
No, and Christian McCaffrey is, let's see, last week he had limited participation in practice, but he did get limited practices in every day. He has started off this week in a limited capacity again. I believe I read that they're saying he's 50-50 at this point. I kind of think it's a little bit more like 60-40 that he will play. They may call it a game time decision, but I'm expecting him to get a full practice in Friday and be a full go. That's just,
remember, this was a hamstring, right?
It's a hamstring, right? That is a hamstring that I don't think
like this is
a really bad
enough
pull.
time.
I don't think it was a complete pull. It definitely wasn't a tear. I don't think it was a complete pull. I think it was a really bad tweak, though. If you watch the play, the way he was running, he felt it immediately, and he immediately hopped and pulled up. I've done that more than once in my life playing sports. Sometimes, if you catch it right, the pull is it's the area that's actually injured can remain small, as opposed to if it cramps up or pulls on you in mid stride and you follow through with that one more full stride and actually really pull it really badly. I think that last week he probably could have played, say, if it was like a playoff game. Okay. But because it's the beginning of the season, they decided to hold him out for one more week. Plus the guy that was Hubbard was running well. So, you know, they said, hey, hold him out another week, precautionary, and let's try to get him back out there next week. So that's the way I'm looking at McCaffrey. Obviously, I could be wrong, but that's how I feel about it from watching and looking at the reports. The Jacksonville Jaguars, unfortunately, had to host the Tennessee Titans. They got smacked 37-19. Whew. Jaguars defense is definitely in over their heads. They sacked Tannehill 3 times. Good for them. But they only stopped the Titans on third down once. That's not good. That means long, hard, time of possession drives. That will spell doom for a team that's being run with a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback and a defense that, again, is playing, they're in way over their heads. They're just not playing well at all. The Titans offensive line put the Jags defensive line like in a meat grinder. It was ugly. Derrick Henry rolled for 130 yards on 29 carries and scored 3 touchdowns. That is a long, hard day. Them cats got to be beat up. Ugh, not much more to say about that. New England Patriots. I mean, what else can you say, right? Tannehill barely had to throw the ball. New England Patriots took a little ride down to Houston after losing to Tom Brady the week before. Thought they had a gimme probably, but it wasn't. They won the game 25-22. Their offensive line has a bunch of injuries. Their ground game is almost non-existent. Mac Jones has been reduced to a carefully handled game manager. That's a nice way for me to put it. In other words, they're trying to keep him at a point where he can do the few things that he does really well, do them successfully, and keep him out of harm's way, not allow him to get injured, not allow him to get himself in a position where he has to throw the ball 40 and 50 times to try to win a game. They were successful. Their defense, which was supposed to be their strength, is struggling too. They got shredded by Texans rookie quarterback Davis Mills. I think the last time that you and I talked about Davis Mills was before the draft. And that's after we had got through all the other quarterbacks of note and started digging deeper. We came up with Kyle Trask and Davis Mills. You remember those names?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Well, Davis Mills had a field day on a New England defense to the tune of 312 yards and 3 touchdowns. In my opinion, the Patriots earned this win, but they were woefully out-schemed and almost out-coached, and they probably didn't deserve to win this one. I don't know how long Belichick's going to hang around, bro, but things ain't looking real good up there in New England right now. That's all I can say about that right now. Chicago Bears took a nice little trip to Vegas. Hope they hit the casinos and all that stuff. They were able to win the game 20-9. Now, before I get into what happened in the game, let me say this. I know we're going to talk about the John Gruden situation in a few. The Bears won this game 20-19. Derek Carr had gotten off to a really good start to this season, and their offense was humming along pretty good. Defense had their troubles, but the offense was humming along very well. I believe that all these issues that we're going to talk about with Gruden were known. I'm sorry, not all of them, but at least the first one was known by the team, obviously by the owner, and somehow had some kind of something with this team. A lot of people now are saying they can't even believe that Mark Davis, the owner, would let him coach this game. I think there was a lot of angst. I think there was a lot of people had a lot of things on their minds. The Raiders did not look like the Raiders. And they certainly should have beaten a team with a guy like Justin Fields quarterbacking. As good as he may be physically talented and all that, this kid ain't really ready for prime time, but he's being well taken care of. Again, very carefully handled rookie quarterback. He threw his first touchdown pass of the season in this one. But other than that, he really wasn't allowed to do too much. Offensive coordinator Bill Lazor is now calling the plays. He is obviously trying to keep Fields out of harm's way. He's funneling the offense through the run game. Damian Williams was replaced. I'm sorry. I had Damian Jones here and threw myself off. Why am I doing that? Damian Williams is the guy who has replaced David Montgomery as the starting running back. He's playing well. He put together 84 yards and a touchdown on 18 touches. Also, now that David Montgomery is down and will probably be down for a couple of more weeks, this has allowed a rookie running back, Khalil Herbert, who was basically the third stringer, maybe got a couple of touches per game. He's now been elevated to backup status, and he showed himself pretty well. He's definitely worthy of more looks going forward. He carried the ball 18 times. He gained 75 yards. So Khalil Herbert's a guy to look out for. Fantasy alert, if you're hurting for a running back, you might want to grab him. Could be some surprises in store for you there.
Okay.
Yeah. Watch out for that kid, Khalil Herbert. I got to go back and take a look and see what school he went to. This one, sheesh. This was a knockdown drag out. The Cleveland Browns went to Los Angeles to play the Chargers. The Chargers pulled out the victory, 47-42. What a game. This was arguably the best game of the weekend. I don't know what you think, but that's why I say arguably. Some people might, have a little bit more invested in this game or that game. But I think this was one of the best games of the weekend. The Browns' strength is without a doubt their run game, right? Nick Chubb balled out, rushed 21 times, 161 yards, scored on a spectacular 52-yard run. Kareem Hunt slashing, dashing, carried the ball 12 times for 99 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground and caught 5 balls for an additional 28 yards. On top of all that production, Baker Mayfield had his best game of the season so far. Threw more than 1 TD for the first time. Get it? This is his first game with multiple touchdowns. He totaled 305 yards on 23 of 32, got the 2 scores. But, or as the guy on College Game Day says, not so fast, my friend. MVP candidate Justin Herbert went 26 of 43 for 398 yards and a whopping 4 touchdown passes, as well as 3 carries for 30 yards and a touchdown on the ground. 5 touchdowns by Justin Herbert. Austin Eckler heating up, plays better and better every week. Excuse me. Put up 119 yards, 3 touchdowns on 22 touches. And I have to mention Mike Williams. Talked about Mike Williams at the beginning of the season. I mentioned this was a contract year for him, and that last season he didn't play very well, or at least not up to expectations. He's putting up serious numbers right now. I believe he's a comeback player of the year candidate. I don't know what the criteria for that is, but in my mind, he's coming back big time from the season that he had last year. He had 8 receptions.
You mean coming back from an inadequate,
from a poor performance? Yes. Sometimes the criteria is guys get hurt or whatever, and then they come back healthy and then they have a good year. But as far as I'm concerned, the kind of year he had last year, and he was dinged up from time to time, but he tried to play through it, but he just did not play up to expectations, not even close. And if you compare that to the type of season that he's having now, it is night and day. No doubt about it. The guy's balling. 8 catches, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns. Both of them were on bombs, one for 72 yards, one for 42 yards. Mike Williams is a beast right now, having a great season. Yes.
Almost comical watching Njoku on his 71-yard touchdown. I kept wanting to go, yeah. He looked like he was just picking up. He was accelerating. I'm like, I thought it was Chubb at first when I looked at him, didn't realize, I'm just saying I'm accelerating. Like, I'm like, who the heck is that? Is that Chubb? Because that's what Chubb thing. We'll just outrun you. And I looked at it was Njoku. He was out, man.
Tell you, Njoku is a guy that they're still waiting for him to come into his own. You know what I mean? He's still kind of playing second fiddle to Austin Hooper. And he's definitely a far better physical specimen than Hooper, but something's still kind of holding him back. I'm expecting him to emerge sometime soon, if not somewhere during the course of this season, then perhaps next season. I definitely like Njoku, but he's had some injuries and he's had some issues with the plays and catching the ball and things like that. But yeah, Njoku.
I think he's also a victim of scheme to some degree because, again, they're a running team. They got 2 really, really good running backs. So,
absolutely.
That's always going to affect your numbers. All right, there you go.
All right, so the New York Giants, my New York Giants. Oh, my goodness. This game was hard to watch. They lost to the Dallas Cowboys 44-20. In my mind, coming into this game, I knew that this could go one of 2 ways. One way would be we get our doors blown off. The other way would be that we hang in there. Actually, one of 3 ways, because I was thinking if we don't get our doors blown off, we could actually make this a competitive game. And although I don't really believe in, what do you call them? You know what I mean? Excuse me?
Superstition?
No. Moral victories. I don't really believe in moral victories. I thought that it might be a good thing for us at this time, considering who we were playing. Then the third thing was that we would get killed. But that was number 3 on the list. Anyway, 2 injuries struck our 2 main players, and it really hurt. Like I said, it was hard to watch. I thought this was actually a possibly winnable game, but that's just me talking. I'm a big-time Giants fan. We actually were hanging in there early and playing pretty well. Who knows? Maybe we could have pulled off the upset, but Daniel Jones suffered a concussion on a not real smart attempt to score a touchdown on a 1-yard bootleg play. Now, let me be clear, because I know how you feel about quarterbacks running and all that stuff. I have no problem with the play. They were on the 1-yard line. Faked the handoff, bootlegged around, tried to run it in. No problem. Thought it was a good play call. Looked like Dallas was ready for it. And Jones looked like he got stuck between trying to bulldoze his way in or maybe at the last minute dive and extend the ball. But whatever the heck happened to him, he ended up just basically going down and sort of kind of trying to bulldoze his way in, caught a helmet-to-helmet hit, knocked him silly, gets up, he's wobbling all around the field before the trainers can come out and get him. I'm like, well, that's the end of his week. He'll be in concussion protocol, and hopefully he won't miss a game, which it looks like he probably won't. I read that he took first team snaps in practice yesterday, so hopefully he'll be back. But for that game, obviously he was unable to return. Then Saquon Barkley steps on a defender's foot and sprains his ankle. The doggone play was over, and he was slowing down and didn't even see the guy. I don't think they even saw each other. And he just stepped on the guy's foot, twisted his ankle. It swelled up right away. They showed it on TV. It was really ugly. It looked like a softball on the side of his leg. But the good news is it was a low ankle sprain, not a high ankle sprain, which makes a whole heck of a lot of difference. And from what I've read, there's no real structural damage. So this is just going to take rest and treatment. I don't know
what it reminded me of.
Was that
an ankle sprain? We played the Cougars, and it was a big game. We had everybody out there. It was a big game because, the Cougars were undefeated for like years and years, and here we are barely winning the game, and we're out.
Is this when we were in the Badgers?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And like the first play of the game, the play's over. The running back who's coming out of the backfield, I'm standing there. He just like accelerates into me and pushes me. The play's over. And I'm just standing there.
Right.
When he pushed me, I stepped back, turned my ankle, and I'm out the game, the rest of the game.
Oh.
I'm like, it blew up just like Saquon's. It was like, it was bringing back like bad memories.
Yeah. But again, just like Saquon, that was one of them unavoidable, yet obviously it should have never happened type things. You know what I mean?
Hey, look, in basketball, I learned early, well, maybe not early enough, when I'm coming down from a rebound to try my best to land with both feet simultaneously.
Right.
Landing with one foot down and you step on the side of somebody's foot.
Yep.
So yeah, that was tough. But Bart, like you said, lower ankle sprain, which means that quicker healing time.
Yeah. And like I said, no real structural damage, no breaks, no fractures, no tears. He should be okay. He's just got to probably give it a couple of weeks to calm down and get that swelling out of there. But needless to say, at some point along the line between those two injuries, the wheels basically fell off and the Dallas offensive machine just went to work on us. So what are you gonna do?
Hey, look, it was 17-10 at the end of the first half. They put up 17, Giants put up 10. Like you said, they were kind of in it.
Oh, absolutely.
Exactly out of it.
Absolutely.
But it was 27-10 in the second half.
Yeah. It got away from them.
Yeah. Hey, look, man. Dak looks good. The offense looks good.
Better than good.
The defense, we'll talk about the rankings on the defense. They're starting to, the media doesn't have the way of looking at defenses and, as objectively as we do. So they are throwing out, recognition that this is a better defense, but how much better we're going to talk about when we actually do the rankings.
Yes, we have numbers to put to it that let you know how much better. Yeah. Exactly. All I'll say is they're really, really fast, and they got a corner that's playing lights out. Lights out. Trayvon Diggs.
And they have one of your fellow alumni from Penn State.
But there's some talk about him. He hasn't been great in every game.
Well, let me finish saying what I'm saying. Because of injury, they moved him from linebacker to D end.
Yes, and he was thriving.
So I mean, he's still a rookie. He's still learning it, but his speed and that type of flexibility to go from position to position, hopefully, we'll see what happens with him, but I think he's going to continue to be good.
I'm just saying there's some haters out there on social media, and I'm calling them haters because they're going out of their way to point out his mistakes. But they are mistakes nonetheless. And you can call them rookie errors if you want, but people seem to have a problem with other folks really highly touting particular players and then them not being close to as great as people are trying to say that they are. Maybe they will be, but at the moment they are not necessarily as great as people are saying that they are. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, I love the guy. He's got all the skills. He's got all the talents. He falls asleep sometimes. I think moving him to pass rusher probably is a good thing for him. When he gets back to linebacker, we'll see. You know what I mean? How well he does there as a true linebacker as opposed to, you know, an outside pass rush type guy. But that remains to be seen. Your team, the San Francisco 49ers, I swear, it seems like every week you guys are playing a division foe.
Yeah. No,
so this week
doesn't seem like every week.
It seems like it to me. My God, didn't you just play the Rams in Seattle?
Every week.
That's what I thought. Is you play Seattle, you play the Rams. My goodness, who's left?
No, that's what they're doing.
Yeah, they stacked those games up on you, and it wasn't nice. But this time you had to go to Arizona. But you did pretty well. Unfortunately, you didn't come away with the victory. Arizona beat you 17-10 in a game that was probably a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. I thought you would play well. I thought the score would be higher by both teams, but I did believe Arizona would win. But I thought it was going to be more like, I don't know, 28-24 or 28-21 or something like that. So 17-10 was a bit surprising for me, but the Niners put up a tremendous defensive effort in this game. The stats might not necessarily reflect it. They really only recorded one turnover, and they only sacked Kyler Murray twice. But they had tremendous pressure on him. They were relentless. They were coming at him, having him throw off balance, scrambling like crazy, running for his life. He struggled to complete 22 of 31 passes for only 239 yards and one touchdown, and zero rushing yards. When did you ever think somebody would hold Kyler Murray to 0 rushing yards? But the San Francisco 49ers defense was able to do that.
I did not know that.
Yes, he had 0 rushing yards.
Oh, wait.
Unfortunately,
Wait. I see he had 7 carries for 1 yard. But you know something?
You got to be kidding me. That was a tremendous defensive effort just to do that.
The bias plus score favored the Cardinals 60. It was a 60 burger.
Yes.
So that's almost the equivalent of a moral victory, except for the fact that's little brother beating big brother's butt.
Yeah. But I would say it's close to the equivalent of a moral victory because they were able to do something defensively when, in fact, your defense was looking like, I'm not quite sure. You know what I'm saying? But they were able to scheme up a way to negate him on the ground and force him to beat you through the air. And I'm not even going to say that they actually won the game because he beat you through the air. I just think that your offense just is in a little bit of a disarray right now.
Yeah, the offense is in a little bit of a disarray, I would say, especially, you know, with the situation at quarterback. But let's also mention the catch D-Hop had on Josh Norman.
Oh,
but the game was that close.
Yes, it was.
It was
a major
close.
catch.
I mean, that catch, you know, he just rules the sideline.
He's tough. He's tough. He got the toe tap down. Yeah, when they get the ball to him on the outside.
Somebody pointed, they said the ball looked like when he caught it, it was 5 yards out of bounds when he caught it.
Yeah.
And he still got the toe tap in.
Yeah. I mean, the guy wears size like 5X gloves. He's long, he's lean, he has tremendous body control. He can contort and catch passes each and every kind of way, which makes him even more difficult to cover, especially along the sidelines. So, yeah, he's a problem.
I think Josh Norman was on him so tight he could probably smell his underarms.
He probably covered him. He probably covered him as best was humanly possible. You know what I mean? But I'll tell you, and since we're giving out kudos, let me say this, and I caught myself saying this to myself, and I meant to text you. Doesn't Kyler Murray throw a pretty ass ball?
Oh, yes, he does.
His passes are so catchable. He lets the ball go, and I feel like I just want to run after him. You know what I'm saying? They're all nice, tight spirals. His long ball has the perfect amount of arc on it. He just throws a really gorgeous ball, man. But
it's funny that you say his long ball has the perfect arc, because who's the receiver, the short receiver that's real fast that he's been hitting a lot lately?
Rondale Moore.
Rondale. And I remember thinking of him and Rondale are probably like the same height. So he seems to have a special connection with Ron. Like, we don't have to throw the ball, but so high. But
I remember a game a couple of weeks ago. He threw a dart to him, but there was nobody from the other team anywhere near, so he didn't have to put any arc on it. I mean, he just fired that thing on a clothesline.
That's what I'm saying. Him and Rondale got that connection, man. You know that, because
Rondale need to get some separation.
Rondale had the one toe tapper like D-Hop, and that ball wasn't. The ball couldn't loop too much. It had to be on almost kind of a rope type thing, you know. And it was Rondale just right for Rondale to do the toe tap.
Rondale Moore is one of those guys that my brother was praising when he was a sophomore in college. My brother's been following this guy, so for him to meet up with my brother's expectations, he needs to learn how to get separation on the long ball and catch some bombs from Kyler Murray. That's what he needs to do, you know, to live up to that, because he's got the speed and he's not a tall guy. So, all right, you know, catch stuff over the middle, great. Get a little sideline thing and take it up the sideline, great. But they brought him there to be a long ball dude, because they don't have
think they brought him there to be a long ball dude.
They don't have one. Why wouldn't they?
Well, again, see, now that means that you're surmising something, and I don't surmise stuff like that, because with my coach, you know, he has no real long ball game. Everything is motion and movement and toss it here and let him run behind this three guys.
Right. So do you have a long ball receiver?
Huh? He don't even. My coach don't even want one.
Whoa! You just said it. You don't have a long ball receiver because your coach doesn't need one.
No,
the Cardinals got a long ball receiver.
I did not say need. I said want.
Doesn't want. Okay. So if he doesn't want one, why would he get one?
Well, that's my point.
You don't get what you don't want.
This scheme doesn't.
They do want a long ball.
He doesn't scheme for that. He doesn't scheme for that. And I'm wondering if the
Cardinals
are scheming for that also.
Yes, they are. It's no wonder to me. You may wonder. I don't. That's something that they lacked. That's something that they lacked, and they went out and got it. It don't have nothing to do with Shanahan. They lacked long ball. You guys lack long ball. They went and got one. Y'all didn't bother. Period.
Scheme. That's all I'm saying. Okay, who's up next?
Let me just say this. As good as the Niners defense played, it's unfortunate for the Niners that the Cardinals defense played just as well. They only sacked Trey Lance twice. They rushed him unmercifully. They forced him in a woefully bad passing day. Now, to his credit, he did rush the ball for 89 yards. But if you're a rookie quarterback making your first start in the NFL and your name's not Lamar Jackson, you probably have no business rushing the ball 16 times. It's a wonder he finished the damn game, Bear.
Oh,
the hits,
dude, believe
the hits,
me. He had a Daniel Jones moment.
Bro, the hits he took in that game.
Yeah. Yeah, the Daniel Jones. Remember, he went to the other
No,
side.
he had 7 Daniel Jones moments. What is wrong with Shanahan? Now, see, now I'm going to get on Shanahan now since you brought him up. You got Jimmy Garoppolo. You started him. Good move. Get Trey Lance ready, quarterback of the future. Okay, I got that. Then you really start loving Trey. You start fitting him in here and there. Now in your mind, you're going. This is all speculation by me, by the way. Now you're thinking, I can't wait until Garoppolo either messes up or gets hurt so I can get Trey Lance out on the field. Unfortunately, it happened a little bit sooner than it should have. Trey Lance is not ready. He's not ready. Now you're putting him in positions to get jacked up. The Bears don't do that to Justin Fields. They're keeping his ass in the pocket. Get rid of the ball. Don't take hits. Shanahan turns him loose. If he gets killed, I don't mean killed, but if he gets really messed up and then Garoppolo comes back and he stubs a toe, what are you going to do then? I know you're against all this, so I'm not getting
you're preaching.
I know how you feel about it.
Here. You're preaching to the choir.
And I know that.
When we talk about we talk about the Ravens game, I'll mention something to you that
yes,
that I found out. But yeah, I'm with you, and I told you. Oh, this is also funny, Benny. Remember I said on Madden, now I played that game. First of all, I played that game against the Cardinals. I lost the game. I kept it close, kind of like that. What I found out, what I realized later, was that I kept trying to run to the edges. And on one side, they had J.J. Watts. On the other side, they got Chandler Jones. So that just ain't. That just ain't.
Are you running to the edges with running backs or with the quarterback?
With running backs.
Okay.
I'm not. I play with Trey Lance, but I don't run a lot with Trey Lance.
I got you.
Right. And that's the difference. And then the funny thing is, I'm looking at the Madden ratings. Remember, I said I was surprised because Garoppolo was like a 75 and Trey was like a 74.
Right.
Now they're both like 75 on the game. They're equal.
Yes, because Trey Lance now has some NFL experience. It's not much, but he has some NFL experience. So physically, he should have been far ahead of Garoppolo.
Oh, he is. That's why.
But Garoppolo had to be ahead of him because he's got NFL experience and Lance doesn't. But now he does. And the little bit of experience that he has already lifted him to Garoppolo, and he will probably pass him before the season's over. I don't know how often they redo the measurables, but I'm pretty sure he'll be ahead of him in no time. So that's that's all crazy. Right. All right. Where are we at here? Oh, was this your intriguing game of the week? Buffalo, Kansas City? Because it was mine.
You know something, Ben? I didn't do an intriguing game of the week last week.
Okay.
But this one had an influence. And when I sat and watched it afterwards, I'm like, holy mackerel. Because in the Bias Plus report, it was the highest bias score of the weekend.
What?
It favored the Bills over the Chiefs. Yes.
A little bit of a skew from last weekend, from week 4, rather.
Well, you know something? The Chiefs are askew.
Their team is askew.
Yeah.
I got you. Yeah, the Chargers probably had a little bit to do with that. But let's see. So anyway, this actually was my intriguing game of the week. It went the way I hoped with the Bills getting the win on the road, by the way. But it didn't play out the way I expected. Patrick Mahomes is really beginning to show the propensity to be sloppy with the ball. This is something that a lot of people would not ever believe would happen. He has now thrown 6 interceptions over the last 4 weeks. He was extremely inaccurate against the Bills. And the Bills defense, remember, is kind of a rebuilt defense. They were missing. The last time they played the Chiefs was in the AFC Championship game, if I remember correctly. And the Bills defense, especially their pass rush, was what really held them back from being able to possibly win that game. So they've rebuilt their pass rush, rebuilt their defensive line, and made some additions in the secondary. And they held him to 33 of 54. And yeah, it's Patrick Mahomes, but 54 passes is too doggone much. He only threw for 272 yards. And now Edwards-Helaire is out with an MCL sprain. So the running game that you didn't really use now is severely hampered. Oh, by the way, he did throw 2 touchdown passes, but he also threw in 2 interceptions. So yeah, sloppy with the ball and too much pass, not enough run, no balance on your offense. Andy Reid, you guys got to put your heads together and figure this out. The Chiefs just don't use their run game the way they should, in my opinion. Now that Edwards-Helaire is out, they've got Darrell Williams, the backup. I don't know how well he's going to fare. I think they brought in some other guys off the street or something. So I'm sure they'll figure it out. But it doesn't really matter, because if you don't use your number one running back as often as you should in more ways than one, what makes me think that you're going to use his backups any better? I know Chiefs fans are used to their team just making miracle plays and throwing the Kelsey all over the place and bombs away to Tyreek Hill and just outscoring people. But their defense just can't stop a soul right now. They're horrible. They are horrible. They've given up 30 points or more in 4 of their 5 games. 30 points or more in 4 of their 5 games. And in that other game, they gave up 29. They've only picked off 3 passes. They only have 3 interceptions so far, and they've only recorded 7 3-and-outs in 5 games. They're not forcing teams to punt. They're not getting turnovers. This is not good. And while we're talking about defense, let me real quick give the Bills defense their due. 2 sacks, 2 interceptions. 1 was a pick 6 and 2 fumble recoveries. They're cooking right now. And obviously, when we talk about the Bills, we have to talk about Josh Allen. I think he's an MVP candidate. He took the Chiefs secondary to the woodshed and whooped them real good. He topped 300 yards through the air on only 15 completions. Bombs over Baghdad, baby. And he ripped them for 59 yards on the ground on 11 carries. The Bills are a problem, folks. I'm not going to give any playoff or Super Bowl predictions just yet. I'm going to wait till mid-season. I'm going to stop right there. I'm not going to say anymore. Indianapolis Colts. Indianapolis Colts and the Baltimore Ravens. Boy, what a crazy game this one was. The Baltimore Colts end up winning the game 31-25 in overtime. Carson Wentz. Man. So we're in Philly. So when people hear Carson Wentz, all kind of emotions come out. This guy came into this game with only 1 250-yard or 250-plus yard performance this season. He finished this game with 402 yards on 25 of 35 passing and 2 touchdowns. Make no mistake about it. Carson was great in the first half of this game. He tossed a screen to Jonathan Taylor that he took for 76 yards for a score, and he tossed a 42-yard bomb to Michael Pittman. I think he mossed that guy. That DB got muscled. Yeah, he earned that catch. The Colts were rolling, and during the third quarter, I forget how much time was left in the game, there was a point in the third quarter where they were actually ahead 22-3 in the third quarter. Their run fits on defense were great, especially in the first half. They were keeping all the holes plugged. Lamar was looking and looking and looking. Once he, and I know you want to talk about this later when we do the social media stuff and all, about him taking his eyes off the receivers downfield. But he was trying to find holes to run. There were none there. The Colts offense was humming. But then for whatever reason, they took their foot off the gas. Now, in their defense, offensively, yeah, okay. Let's tone it down a little bit, get a little conservative, getting ready to go into the fourth quarter. Just be careful. Don't turn the ball over. We'll finish them off. But defensively, you can never slack off on Lamar Jackson. That's suicide. Even though Lamar was held in check on the ground in the first half and he couldn't find the end zone at all, he was still efficient with his passes. The Ravens figured out something with their run blocking. Lamar started to push the ball downfield. And once they got it going, the Colts defense was totally overwhelmed. It's like a big old rock rolling down the hill, just going faster and faster. There was nothing they could do about it. Lamar started to find holes. He exploded. 62 total yards on 14 carries, as well as continue to throw the ball well, continuously finding tight end Mark Andrews and Marquise Brown. He just kept calling Mark Andrews. They just kept calling Mark Andrews' name over and over and over. And I was behind in fantasy on one of my teams that I have Mark Andrews, and I goes catching up and ended up winning the game thanks to Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews. They was working. Andrews caught 11 balls for 147 yards and 2 touchdowns. Marquise Brown hauled in 9 passes for 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. Brown's second touchdown catch was the game winner in overtime, and Lamar finished with a career high 504 total yards. 442 were through the air on 37 completions on 43 attempts. My God, that's insane. 37 of 43, 442. Oh no, he's a running quarterback. I'm sorry. I digress.
Let me say this.
That's it. That's all I got.
You mentioned, that we communicated on Facebook, and I said something about Lamar doesn't look right in that first half.
Yes.
And I saw, you like, what? Yeah, you see.
Yes.
But it was the first half. That's what I was looking at. When I made that statement, that's what we had seen so far was the first half. And one of the things that I found,
You didn't say what it was that didn't look right. You just said something.
I just said something. Yeah. Something didn't look right. So in any event, one of the things that I started noticing, and it's going to play into my intriguing game of the week, is the amount of play action on both teams. And old school says, okay, play action comes in, you get your ground game running, going, and then you can play action. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I'm looking and I'm saying, okay, ground game doesn't look consistent here. It's like, on the teams, but they're still running play action. In one particular play, and I actually have the picture. I didn't put it up. I'm gonna put it up on my Facebook page. Lamar Jackson play actioned to nobody. There was
that was a busted play.
You can say it was if you want.
It was.
However, when I did research into this whole play, it was bothering me. Okay. Because what I saw was the first half, they kept running these plays where they kept having them spin. They take their eye off the defense, they turn around, they're doing the play, doing all of this stuff. And things didn't look in a flow. In the second half, they were letting him just drop back and fire the ball. He's killing them. And
Which they should have been doing.
You could have been doing that all day, all of this fancy, blah, blah. But Ben, this is what I found out. Analytics is really beginning to rule the day.
Yes.
I read a report that the analytics said that you don't need a successful run game to play action. You can play action, and they're saying that just the act of play action is making these quarterbacks, is improving their numbers. I'm having a difficult time with this because it goes against that traditional thinking that we have. They said you literally don't have to be successful in your rushing game for play action to help the quarterback, to help the play be successful. So look for the article. Look for the article. I'm going to put it up. But I'm looking, and I'm saying, wait a second. When you let Lamar just drop back and keep his eye downfield, because number two, he sees two things. He sees his receivers. He also sees running lanes, you know. But if you quit taking his eye off the field, you know, and he can put the ball any place on the field. So it just seems amazing to me that analytics could be helping them in some degree, but when you just get to the point where you don't have a lot of time and you got to score, if you can do it then, you could have been doing it earlier in the game, especially if you're in a hurry up.
I'll tell you where it definitely did help them. And of course, it was basically a no-brainer at that point in the game, was when to go for the 2-point conversions. Because, you know, they have a whole big analytical write-up about that. In fact, coaches carry a card in their pocket that says, if the score is this, you go for 2. If the score is this, you don't go for 2. So in that respect, yeah, it helped them, because that helped them get back into this game, get it tied up, and take it to overtime. But I need to hear a little bit more than just saying you don't have to be successful in the run game. That baffles me. I'm not going to, these guys are way more smart. They're way smarter than I am.
Well, they know numbers. They got to
tell me more. But they got to tell me more.
It also came into play in the Browns game. If you remember, the Browns were at approximately their 15-yard line.
Yes.
With 4th and 2, down 3.
Yes.
And they go for it.
Yes.
I'm like, dude, tie the game up. Huh? It was the second quarter. It was midway through the second quarter.
Right.
And they wind up being the victim of a field goal that, had they kicked that field goal, they'd have been up 4 at the end of the game, and they couldn't have lost by a field goal.
If everything else went the way that it went.
If everything stayed the same, and I know that's very.
And I usually disagree with you on stuff like that. And in my little coaching brain, I can figure out a reason why they probably did what they did. But at that point in the game, in that position, with the score being what it was, I agree with you this time. They should have just took the 3 and moved on. Sometimes you look at your team and you go, we are a dominant running team. We are in the red zone. We're on the road. We're trying to, establish ourselves here against a team that we know we can beat, but could be a handful for us.
That was the other thing.
It could have been the team that they were playing
against. I'm like, are you guys really scared of those guys like that?
No. But when you're on the road, I mean, it's not like they was a slouch team. When you're on the road, you want to try to take control, obviously. But here's the thing. It might not have been any of that. I'm making this up to try to defend them. It could have just been flat out an ego thing.
No, it was analytics. This is what I'm saying.
Believe it was analytics. Did you read somewhere that they made that decision on analytics?
4th down decision.
No. Did somebody write that? Did somebody say that decision was made based on analytics? Did you hear that?
I'm pretty sure I did.
Okay.
But what I'm saying to you is, what I'm saying is that the use of analytics is way more pervasive than what we might be thinking. And I think, and I'm even beginning to think some of the coaches are using it almost like cover. It's like, oh, well, the analytics say, so yeah, you made that decision because you had the analytics. So if it goes wrong, well, really, it was the analytics fault.
I get it. I get
So
it.
I'm
I
gonna be
understand
looking
that.
at
I'm just
more of that,
asking.
and you'll see that come out in the blog.
Yeah, I'd like to see a little bit more on that in that specific situation. Obviously, analytics is used more pervasively than probably any of us know, if pervasively is the proper word.
Pervasive.
But I don't want you to just speculate that why would he make that move? It must have been an analytical thing, because then that would kind of be like saying, why would you get Rondale Moore because you don't need him to run long patterns?
Good try. Go ahead. Good try. Good try,
Gotcha.
buddy. Good try. All right. So what do we got? Is that it?
That's it.
Wow.
The week that was.
Well, again, historically bad week for kickers. And kickers lead pretty much every team in scoring. There was a tweet out this week where I'm trying to remember who it was, and I think it was somebody like Hopkins, like Nuke, who was I think they were questioning about the kicker being the leading scorer, and
right.
I'm like, they're leading scorer on every team.
Yeah.
Like pretty much every team. So these kicks, man, are really big,
Right.
and to some degree, I'm wondering if it's a negative reflection on the ability of these offenses to get a first down by third down, because they're kicking from further and further back. They're kicking 60, they're pushing up on 70 yards now. Come on, man, get a first down, will you?
Yeah, I think if you actually went back in history, you would find that most of the time, by the end of the season, the field goal kicker is the highest scoring player on the team.
Yeah.
That's kind of traditional. But as far as kicking the ball from further back, these guys got the legs, man. There's situations where under normal circumstances they would have punted, and they're like, nah, screw that. Go take a shot. So that's a plus.
The 70-yard field goal is coming.
It's coming. Somebody's gonna hit it. Somebody's gonna hit it.
Some dome or up in Denver where the air is thin on a nice day, when you maybe get a breeze to your back, get a little help.
All the conditions have to be right, but it could happen.
It could happen. All right, so that wraps up Ben's week 5 review.